100 members and approximately 18,000 square feet of space in their building. The sanctuary auditorium area will only be 10,178 square feet in size. Based on the size of the sanctuary auditorium, the parking requirements would be for 665 persons. Parking requirements for a religious facility is one parking space for each 4 persons. The maximum occupancy of the sanctuary auditorium, this would require 166 parking spaces. Currently, there is approximately 76 parking spaces, 9 feet in width and 18 feet long, on the north and west sides of the building. The applicant will be short approximately 90 spaces. The applicant has applied for a variance to the parking requirements. It should be noted that the building code would require sprinklers for the structure if the assembly area was larger than 12,000 square feet, or if there was more than 300 church members in attendance. The applicant will need to partition off at least 66,000 square feet of the building to meet the 12,000 square foot requirement with a fire rated wall. The sanctuary assembly area will only be 10,178 square feet based on the site plan submitted. The fire department has concerns about the building, including need for a sprinkler system, alarm system, and requests that an architect examine the building, which the building department agrees with. These issues will need to be addressed by the applicant separately from the special permit request if approved. The Planning Commission unanimously approved their recommendation for a special permit at the regular meeting on December 28th, 2021. The applicant is also requesting a variance to the parking requirements. Part of this request, the applicant has 76 spaces, but is short approximately 90 spaces of the total 166 spaces required. Therefore, staff recommends the approval of the request by Healing Water Assembly of God for a special permit to allow for a religious facility and a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 76 parking spaces, 90 less than 166 required in the C2 commercial district located at 1101 Black Hawk Road. The request is in a C2 commercial district. It would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood and would not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian or vehicular traffic conditions in the area, with the following conditions: that the capacity of the church not exceed 300 persons.
Okay. I have a question. Does the fire department have a concern with the 10,000 square feet?
Yeah, it was originally, when that was put in the agenda or the staff report, it was because before they said they were going to make it only 10,000 square feet. So that should have been changed in the staff report.
Okay.
But they still will require architectural review of the building anyway, so that will meet the fire department's requirements.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I just have a quick question. I don't remember, John, if I voted for this in the December planning and zoning meeting or not. Because I'm thinking if I did, I probably ought to abstain.
Yeah, I'm thinking you did, so it's probably best if you abstain from this one.
Okay, then I will.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, is it prudent for us to add the number of square feet that we are approving the special variance for? You limit it by, when it's said in the staff report, 300 people, but I don't know, they've got 12,000 square feet there, and we're approving a variance for their parking of 76 within, because of a 12,000 square foot structure. Or will it be handled by another process?
It's actually 18,000 square feet.
Jerry, I want to dovetail with where you're going with this. John, the third paragraph on the staff analysis zoning ordinance section of the document, where it talks about requiring a wall. I think it's in that third paragraph. So I want to make sure I understand this. The total size of this building is 18,000 square feet.
Eric, are you on the line? Can you chime in here, because you were dealing with this with more than I was, so.
So I am not sure of the total square foot of the building. I can double check that and probably can get it here relatively quickly, but regardless of what that is, yeah, if they build a wall that would separate out a smaller main sanctuary area, the occupancy and the parking requirements are both based on that main sanctuary occupancy.
So in other words, it would reduce the size of, if the entire building is 18,000 square feet, and they build a wall to reduce it to, what, 10? Is that what I'm seeing? Then they'll meet the requirements for what we're dealing with here, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
I just looked this up on the Black Hawk County site, and the entire building is 18,084 square feet.
Okay, and this is the former skate rink that became a gymnastics business, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well,
So I think where Beckman and I are going is that it says specifically that the applicant will need to partition off at least 6,000 square feet. Do we, in order to issue this variance, do we need to make that a part of our approval?
I think it would be appropriate as well.
Thank you.
What's the name of the applicant? I don't see that on the document here.
All we had was the church's name. That was it.
Is there anybody from this organization present?
No. Because they were present the last time they requested, weren't they? Or since I missed that meeting because I was out of town.
I think they were present, if I recall, for that one. And
we
again,
had this one before.
well, hold on. My next question for clarification is that presently this church is located at 525 West 5th Street, right over here at the old Brinkley's Landing. And they did come before us
Okay.
because it was discovered that they weren't in compliance. So
That was fairly recently then, wasn't it?
yes, it was. So they're presently there. Their intent is to move to Black Hawk.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
It says on the application that they're wanting a special permit for 18,000 square feet. So I think that supports the thought that we should really limit what we're approving.
And to your knowledge, John, this is a rental, not a purchase. Or
I
Eric?
believe so.
I do not know. They did not list a different property owner on the application, which they should have done if they're not purchasing it, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, they did. It says it's a lease, and there's a different signature from the owner. On the
Okay.
Where do you see that, Jerry?
On page 17.
On the lease on page 17 in our package.
Okay. Legal description.
Does say the entire building.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
This is Schrader with staff. The special permit would cover the entire property, including the entire building, but I think that would be appropriate to have a condition that would note a limitation on the size of the main sanctuary. That's not to say that the other portion of the building, can't still be incidental, related to the church facility, offices, Sunday school classrooms, that type of thing. It's just that if their occupancy of that main hall is greater than what was being discussed there, then they've got a sprinkler system issue with the building code, and then we're, from a planning standpoint, concerned on the parking. We're we're in support of a variance to go up to that, 300 occupancy. There's a decent amount of parking on the site.
John or Eric, are there any objections to this request?
No, we've received no, in fact, we've received no objections from any request today, so.
Save that question then.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other questions? So is there anybody in the audience or online wish to speak in favor of the request? Hearing or seeing none, is there anybody in the audience or online that wish to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none, then I guess I would entertain them. There's no further discussion, I entertain a motion.
Jerry, you want to take a stab at this?
Okay, thanks. All right. I move that we recommend the approval of the request by Healing Water Assembly of God Church for a special permit to allow for a religious facility and a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 76 parking spaces, 90 less than the 166 parking spaces required in the C2 commercial district located at 1101 Black Hawk Road. The request is in an area zone C2 commercial district. Number two, it would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. And number three, it would not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian or vehicular traffic conditions in the area. With the following conditions. One, the capacity for the church will not exceed 300 persons. And two, the sanctuary/auditorium is restricted to 10,178 square feet in size.
Requiring a wall or not? Can we put that in there? Can you throw that in, Jerry?
I sure can. Additionally, the applicant will need to partition off at least 6,001 square feet of the building to meet the 12,000 square foot requirement for a fire rated wall.
Second.
I think there's one word that you used that I think you said the capacity of the auditorium.
I thought I said sanctuary/auditorium.
Okay,
That's
but
what I
isn't
wrote.
it church?
Well, in the staff report, they specified the terminology I used. Now, if we want to say it differently to make it more proper, help me out here.
I think my question is, let's say they had 300 in the sanctuary, they couldn't have anybody else in the building, is what way you've worded it.
Well, it's according to the staff report, if they have more than 300 in the 12,000 square feet, they're going to also have to do the sprinklers.
No, you're not understanding. They could not have anybody in the other portion of the 6,000 because you've limited the total to the building to 300 in the sanctuary.
I think the 6,000 is the sanctuary.
No, 6,000 is the 10,800 is the sanctuary.
Eric?
Okay, here's what the numbers are. We have 18,000 square feet approximately for the whole building. It's stated here the sanctuary and auditorium will be 10,178. And we're dealing with that number in order to approve the variance for the parking spaces, 76 versus the shortness of 90. And then further, okay, what?
No, I'm sorry, Jerry, go ahead.
Okay, and then staff said that there's a a restriction about 300 church members, which in the paragraph talks about the sanctuary.
Right, I'm not questioning that. What I'm questioning is
Okay.
the sanctuary, you're limiting it to 300, okay? But we're not approving that they could ever have anybody in the rest of the building if they had 300 in the sanctuary, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so help me understand this paragraph. It should be noted that the building code, this is on page 10, third paragraph. It should be noted that the building code will require sprinklers for the structure if the assembly area is larger than 12,000 square feet or if there are more than 300 church members in attendance. The applicant will need to...
In the sanctuary.
In the sanctuary. 300 in the sanctuary.
Yep.
The church is bigger than the sanctuary.
The building is bigger than the sanctuary, correct?
I'm asking, what I'm stating is the word church, or the word sanctuary should say church rather than sanctuary.
Okay, we're dealing with three things here. If the assembly area, which, excuse me, I'll call you back. If the assembly sanctuary has more than 300 people in it, there are certain restrictions.
Right, I understand that. We're approving the whole church, not just the sanctuary. There's another 6,000 of church in there. If they had 300 in the sanctuary on a given moment, the way you've worded it, they couldn't have anybody else in the other 6,000.
This is Eric Schrader with staff. I'm following you, Brad, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What are you looking to be changed in the motion?
Other than we're just putting the word church in and then add in not to exceed 300 in the sanctuary. You're approving you're only limiting the 300 in the sanctuary.
Correct.
Your motion limited 300 to the building because you didn't include anything for the rest of the building.
So your concern is with number one written in the staff report, the capacity for the church
No.
will not exceed 300 persons.
Oh,
Is
number
that
one,
something
yeah,
the Board of Adjustment?
yes.
Okay. Craig, you had a question?
I just wondered if that's something that the Board of Adjustment, if that was even in our scope. Because it's, as I understand it, we're giving them a special permit for the whole building, the whole property, and not just the sanctuary.
This is Schrader with staff. The reason it would be within the board scope is based on how it relates to parking. So what they're going to be allowed for occupancy would normally dictate what they have to have for parking, and they don't meet that. And we're okay with a variance, but not an open-ended variance that if all of a sudden they would put in a sprinkler system and say, okay, now we can have an occupancy of 500, but they have nowhere near, the parking to accommodate that.
Okay, so it's just basically 18,000 square foot of the building for the whole building, and then you're going to limit the occupancy to 300 based on the parking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the parking is purely based on the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. That many in the sanctuary.
So what does she need to do to modify?
Well, I think you should say something, the capacity of the church and the sanctuary. I'm sorry, the capacity of the sanctuary shall not exceed 300 people, 300 persons.
I'm good with that.
Now I'm confusing myself here. You're making the condition of the motion for the sanctuary you need to encompass the whole building. And I think you narrowed it down with that last sentence. They could
So if
have,
I'm understanding it, go ahead.
they could have 500 people in the other part of the building. Supposedly, I mean, I'm not saying
I
they
don't
would.
think so.
No, they can't.
I don't think so, because the variance wouldn't support the additional parking that would be theoretically encumbered with all those cars for 500 people.
Well, I'm still thinking that you've narrowed it down to the sanctuary, and you need to broaden it to include the church, the whole church, not just the sanctuary.
Well, it seems then if I do that, we'll have to have some more stipulations here, because the build of the argument was based on a sanctuary and auditorium being only 10,178 square feet, which would equate to the allowance of 76 parking spaces, which equates to about 300 in the sanctuary. It doesn't at all speak to the rest of the building's capacity.
But the church is the 18,000 square feet. That's what I'm trying to say. And if you,
Yep, and then they wouldn't need a variance for more parking if we went with 18,000. Is that correct, Mr. Schrader?
Yeah.
And they would have to put in sprinklers, and they would have to put up this firewall.
no, the sanctuary is still less than 12,000 square feet. That's not changing. That's what I'm trying to say. If they have an office that's not part of the sanctuary, and there's an office person in there, and they have 300 in the auditorium, you've narrowed it down to the 300. They could not have someone in the office that day. Granted, that's pretty technical, but I'm trying to show you that you haven't included the whole church. Am I not?
I hear what I hear what you're saying, but I'm not certain where we go with this, especially if you reread the third paragraph on page 10, which said, if the assembly area is larger than 12,000, or if there are more than 300 church members in attendance. So in your example, to be legal with the parking variance, they could have 299 in the sanctuary and one person in the office.
I think the capacity, the 300 capacity, is for the 10,000 square feet, though.
You know, we have a lot of questions, and it'd be very helpful if someone from this organization was present to answer some of these for us, to clarify how this building is going to be made up. Not to beat this to death, but the overall size of the building is 18,000. They're only requesting, or they're stating, the sanctuary auditorium area will only be 10,200 in round figures, square feet in size. And there's no discussion about what they're doing with the rest of that building. So if they're going to only occupy 10,000 plus square feet, then I think that's our focus, is that.
Well, I think they're taking, I think the presentation, their application and the presentation is that they're taking the whole 18,000 feet. I don't know what they're gonna do with the rest of the other 8,000 or 7,900.
Which then leads to, do we need a wall? Do we need sprinklers? Where are we going with this? There's more questions than answers right now. I think we ought to table this and have them come back.
I was going to suggest just tabling it at this point. If, I mean, you have the questions that can't be answered, you need, I mean, that's the, you know, you,
We're kind of spitballing here.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a slippery slope. So I honestly think we should back away from this until we get somebody in here that can answer our questions.
So Eric,
If
I have a question for you. So if they had 300 in the auditorium and they had 50 people in a Sunday school, that would be illegal, is what you're saying? For parking?
We will have to, it could create a concern for parking. We would have to maybe review that with the building, from a building code standpoint, if they maintain the 300 limitation in the main hall or auditorium, and then separately have that, they might be fine. But yeah, our concern on the parking is, you know, based on the auditorium size proposed, it would normally be considered to have an occupancy of well over 300, which is why we were recommending the limitation to 300, but I guess we didn't really think about auditorium and outside auditorium at simultaneous use. So yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to table that. We'll just review it with building, see if we can get some input from the applicant and get the applicant to be present next time and go from there.
Okay. But Jerry, just to clarify what I'm saying on you had the capacity of the auditorium at 300, and I'm saying the capacity of the church will be 300, which would encompass the whole 18,000 square feet. That's where I was going with that. You hadn't addressed the other 6,000. So if you want to table it, that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
So does somebody want to make a motion to table it?
I'll make the motion to table this matter until we get more clarification.
well, she'll have to remove her
Oh,
motion to,
Yeah,
Oh, we do. Yeah, we do need to
You can
vote
just
on hers
withdraw
because you did second her motion,
Or-
so.
Or they can both, movers can withdraw it.
yeah.
I move to withdraw the motion I made.
And I as well.
Beckman?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, I hate to beat one word to death, but I guess I did.
So
No,
now we
but it's
need the motion
important.
to table.
Oh, didn't we?
No,
We didn't do
we
that.
withdrew. Now I'll make the motion to table this matter.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
Moving right along.
Request by Tong Con Lin for a special permit for the religious facility and variance to the parking requirement to allow for 25 spaces, 35 spaces less than the 60 required in a C2 commercial district located at 701 West Fifth Street. Staff report.
To start off with staff, the applicant is requesting to allow for a 22,079 square foot religious facility at 701 West Fifth Street. The request would not appear to have a negative impact surrounding the area. The area contains both commercial and residential properties. The proposed request is not anticipated to impact pedestrian or traffic conditions in the area. The property is Zone C2 Commercial District, zone as such since the adoption of zoning ordinance in 1969. To the north and west is Residential Commercial Zone C2 Commercial District and R4 Multiple Residence District. To the south and east is Residential Commercial Zone C2 Commercial District and R3 Multiple Residence District. The area consists of commercial and residential structures built between the 1880s and 1960s. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for a religious facility, an existing commercial building and the facility currently has an approximately 10 church members and approximately 2,079 square feet of space in the building. The sanctuary assembly area is 1,659 square feet in size. Based on the size of the sanctuary's assembly area, the occupancy would be 237 persons. Parking requirements for a religious facility is 1 parking space for every 4 persons of maximum occupancy of the sanctuary assembly area. This will require 60 parking spaces. Currently, there are approximately 25 parking spaces on the east side of the building. The applicant will be short 35 spaces. The applicant will have to have a variance to the parking requirement. It should be noted that the building code will not require sprinklers for this structure because it is well below the 12,000 square feet minimum. The applicant will need to work with building inspections regards to installing code and compliance stairs in the front of the building and address the ADA requirements. And the architectural review will be required to ensure fire and building codes are properly addressed. The applicant received unanimous approval for the special permit request from the Planning and Zoning Commission at their regular meeting on January 11th, 2021. The applicant is applying for a variance to the parking requirements as part of the request. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request by Thong Can Lian for a special permit for a religious facility and a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 25 spaces, 35 spaces less than the 60 required in the C2 commercial district located at 701 West 5th Street. The request would be in an area zone C2 commercial district. It would not appear to have a negative impact surrounding the neighborhood, and it would not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian or traffic conditions in the area.
Okay. Just the only question I have is these 10 members, where do they meet here now?
No, it's not being used currently as a religious facility. The applicant is here so he can answer the questions.
Get him up here.
Okay. Could you state your name and your address?
Yeah, my name is Tom Kandian, and the address is 701 West 5th Street, Waterloo, Iowa 50702.
That's where
Okay.
it is.
Mike, the question is, it says you have 10 members in your church now.
Yes,
Do you meet at this location now?
yes, we really need.
Okay.
No, he said he really needs.
Hmm?
Did you understand the question, sir?
Yes,
Where are you presently meeting with your church members?
the meeting at the church, at the building, 701.
Okay.
So you've already occupying the building?
Not yet, as right now we just stay home, and then we're meeting at home, something like that.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
That was the only question I had.
So your intent is to rent this building?
No, it's, we bought it,
You're buying the building. You're going to be the owner,
yes,
and you bought the whole building.
yes, sir.
When do you, well, as soon as everything's approved, then you intend to move in there and can have your services there? Yes?
Yes, when I prove it,
Okay.
for the month. It's the next building, 705, also us building. The next one is 705, it's our building too. The small one.
Is that where there's a grocery store in that
Yes.
building?
Yes,
Okay.
the small one.
So yeah, you can see it right there.
The next
It's really small down
the
next
small
to
one,
the,
yeah,
Is that where that barber shop used to be?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you're right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Do you own that now, or
yes,
that other building?
yes,
Okay. Okay.
And you understand you're going to have to make some adjustments to the building for special needs individuals,
yes,
ramps or whatever.
yes.
Do you have a timeline on that?
Yeah, we already have like the architect, and then like the submarine, we fixed it a little bit.
Okay.
yeah, they'll need to get that done before they'll get a certificate of occupancy.
Okay. And you understand that, correct? You have to have this other stuff done before you can go in and,
Yeah.
okay. That's all I have.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Jerry, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thanks. No.
All right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the request? Okay, hearing or seeing none, if there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request by Tong Hon Line for a special permit for a religious facility and a variance to the parking requirements to allow for 25 spaces, 35 spaces less than the 60 required in the C2 Commercial District located at 701 West 5th Street for the following reasons. Number one, the request is in an area zone C2 Commercial District. Number two, it would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Number three, it would not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian or vehicular traffic conditions in the area.
Second.
Okay. Craig, are you voting on this one?
I am.
Okay. If there's no further questions, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Third request by PCC Realty LLC Peters Construction for a variance to the accessory structure setback requirements, allow for a 2.7 foot setback, 3.3 feet less than the 3 foot required in C2 Commercial District located at 901 Blackhawk Road. Staff report.
This is Dornoff with staff. The property is located on Blackhawk Road, just across from Solar Road. The property is zoned C2 Commercial District, zoned as such since the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on the neighborhood. The nearest building was a residence that was demolished just a couple months ago. There are commercial and industrial uses to the west and a residential to the north. The request would not appear to have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The applicant is requesting to have a variance to the side yard minimum setback requirement to allow for an expansion of the existing accessory structure that will be 2.7 feet from the property line, 0.3 feet less than the 3 feet required. The applicant is looking to build an expansion of their building directly to the south of their existing structure. The new structure will be 60 by 36 feet, 2,160 square feet, which is the same size as their existing building, effectively doubling the size of the square footage of the structure. The existing building exceeds the minimum setback requirements, but are built at a slight skew to the property line, which will cause the corner of the proposed lot to be slightly less than the minimum. However, the property line the property to the south of that building is owned by the City of Waterloo and contains the flood control levee of the Blackhawk Creek. There would not appear to be a lack of reasonable return or request. The applicant has the ability to build an expansion of the structure that meets the 3 foot setback requirement. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request as the property backs to the Blackhawk Creek flood control levee, therefore it would not be affecting private property owners in the area. In addition, the applicant would be required, in addition, if not approved, the applicant would be required to purchase a small portion of this from the city, which would be a difficult process for a small piece of land. And approval of the variance would not appear to have a negative impact on the area, as there are no buildings to the east of the property. And just to note that the Leisure Services Board did recommend approval of this at their meeting recently, and they had no objections. Therefore, staff recommends that the variance for accessory structure setback requirement to allow for a 2.7 foot setback, 0.3 feet less than the 3 foot required in a C2 commercial district located at 901 Blackhawk Road be approved for the following reasons. The request will not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. There appears to be uniqueness to the request that the property does back onto the levee for Blackhawk Creek.
Any questions of staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
So, I don't know how important this is, but it seems like things should be accurate. When I calculated the setback, 2.7 from 3 feet is, you just did the math, but oh, never mind. Never mind.
Jerry, you're probably,
I was,
the engineers do it by tenths, not by, so that's why it's a little confusing. We double check with them on that one.
They do it by what?
okay.
Tenths. So it's not like inches, it's tenths of,
Okay.
yeah.
And if you wanted to back into it again, 0.3 feet times 12 inches is really 3.6, so it's a 0.4, but
Right.
it's okay. Just for accuracy, I was checking.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there anybody in the audience who would speak in favor of the request or online? Hearing or seeing none? Is there anybody in the audience who would speak against the request? Hearing or seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the request by PCC Realty LLC Peters Construction for a variance to the accessory structure setback requirement to allow for a 2.7-foot setback, 0.3 feet less than the 3 feet required in the C2 Commercial District located at 901 Blackhawk Road for the following reasons. Number one, the request would not appear to have a negative impact on the surrounding neighborhood. Number two, there appears to be a uniqueness to the request as the property does back up to the levee for Blackhawk Creek.
Second.
Okay. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, passed. Okay, number 4, request by Tim Walston for a variance to allow for an accessory structure to be built with vertical steel siding located in the R1, 1 and 2 family district, located at 196 Whispering Oaks Lane. Staff report.
This is Dornoff with staff. The property is located at 196 Whispering Oaks Lane. It is zone R1, 1 and 2 family residence district. The request to allow steel siding could have a negative impact on the area, as it could open the door for other properties in the area to ask for similar approvals, and the property is adjacent to a subdivision to the east, with the proposed building being directly behind the home at 225 Niagara Drive. It would appear that the request would not appear to have a negative impact on traffic conditions in the area. The accessory structures to a residential use shall not be constructed of metal materials for exterior siding. The applicant requested to construct a 1,152 square foot structure with vertical steel siding. The Board of Adjustment has granted variances for metal siding in the past. However, those areas were relatively agricultural and fewer homes on the fringe of the city. However, while the applicant does have over 3 acres of land, there is a residential neighborhood along the eastern border of the property, and the accessory structure will be highly visible to the neighbors along Niagara Drive. The applicant had originally requested a variance to the restriction prohibiting accessory structures in the front yard. However, staff determined that while the property is addressed off a private road, Whispering Oak, the narrow dimension front yard is determined to be facing Grand Boulevard, so the proposed building is not considered in the front yard. There lack of criteria, the lack of reasonable return. There will not appear to be a lack of reasonable return. The applicant could build an accessory structure with residentially compatible siding. Uniqueness, there would appear to be some uniqueness to the request. The property is 3.3 acres, but there's a lot of residences surrounding property, including lots to the east that are under 15,000 square feet. Public consideration. Approval of the variance could have a negative impact surrounding the area, as there is residential neighborhood located to the east, and set precedents for other requests for steel siding in residential neighborhoods. Therefore, staff recommends that the variance to allow for metal siding be denied for the following reasons. The area is residential nature and including developments to the east, which vertical siding is not compatible with. There would not appear to be a lack of reasonable return, and the proposed siding would appear to be out of character with residential uses in the area.
Just a clarification on page 36, you've got the addresses 4416 Hammond Avenue.
Yeah, that was just a mistake. It is 196 Whispering Oaks.
Okay, any questions of staff?
Were the neighbors notified on Niagara about this building?
Usually, and actually they were there. There was signs put in front and the back of the property. That's the standard notification plus notification inside in the courier.
This is Schrader with staff. So for variance requests, we don't mail notice. There's just a sign up, and so someone on Niagara very well may not have seen that sign.
And earlier, Mr. Dornoff, you stated there were no objections on file for anything, correct?
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? Does anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the request? Okay. Does anybody in the audience wish to speak? I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
Yes. Mr. Walden, he's on Zoom.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm on Zoom. My name's Tim Walston, the property owner.
Okay.
And I just say thanks for hearing the variance request. And I actually had a couple in there, and John had already let me know that the city now clarifies what I thought was my backyard as our front yard, because it's the only area that connects with the street. So that's great. And I don't know if I don't ask to find out if that metal vertical siding is an option. I have talked to our neighbors back there, and they don't worry too much. But I totally understand your guys' rules, and just wanted to see if it's an option or not. For more just a cost saving thing than anything else, with the uniqueness size of my nature, I thought it was worth investigating. So.
Sir, have you determined what's the difference between the vertical and the horizontal siding cost-wise if you had to do it?
Great question. I'm waiting to get the quotes back from contractors on both sides of things. So I don't actually know that yet. And most of them were hesitant to put much time for me until I find out if this variance was approved or not. At that time, when I had reached out to them, I was under the impression that the area I was talking about was our front yard. And so I didn't even know if I could build anything there yet. So now that I know that it's okay, then I can go back and kind of push them a little bit to actually get dollars. So if it's close, I would absolutely stick with the vinyl siding and match the rest of my house. Totally understand the concept of that and why it's important, and would agree that it looks nicer. So.
Unless I'm missing something, where on the property are you going to put it? I don't see anything like that in here.
Greg, on page 40, on page 40, there's
I did a couple.
All right, never mind.
Okay.
I misread that. My apologies.
No problem.
Mr. Walston, to stay on that track for just a moment, are there other exterior structures on your property other than the house?
Great question. Yes, there's a pre-existing small shed, and then there's also a gazebo on one area. So I was also understanding I'm getting close to the max allowable square footage, which is why I want to make sure I stay within that allowance for the property as a whole.
And the shed that you just mentioned, does that have some sort of siding on it? If so, what? Vertical,
Yes,
horizontal?
Great question. Yes, it does actually have the same vinyl horizontal siding that matches the house.
Okay. And this new structure, what's your intent with that?
Yep, great question. Our existing garage is a very small size garage, and so we're looking for a larger garage to be able to park vehicles in that are, you know, larger size. I got a truck. I also have, so this private lane, Whispering Oaks, city does not maintain it. And so I have a gator and a plow that works on that so I can clear the snow off and refill with gravel. And then 3.5 acres or 3.25 acres, I've got 2 zero-turn mowers. So strictly a garage storage out of the weather and that kind of stuff.
The overhead door on that building will face what direction?
I would have the overhead door face west, so it would go directly towards the lane, towards Whispering Oaks Lane.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to quickly answer on the total square footage, according to Blackhawk County, this would put them at 1,801 feet, which is 1 foot over, which, I mean, plus or minus, you know, margin of error. However, when we did the gazebo, we did with GIS, it came out like 3 feet less than what the county says it is. So, I mean, at that point, it's close enough. We consider it fine that it meets the requirement. It'll be under the 1,800.
Mr. Wilson, you realize that the city planning department is asking us to reject this for the vertical siding? Are you aware of that?
I do understand that. Yes,
Okay.
I am. I do understand that now. Yep. And so I have, I understand whichever you guys vote, and I understand that makes sense and what they're proposing. So,
Okay. So we're only approving or denying, whichever, the vertical.
Correct.
There's nothing else. If he was putting a horizontal, we wouldn't even be here.
Correct.
Okay.
that's my understanding as well. And that was since I had submitted asking for the front back discrepancy, that's now been negated. So it's kind of, yes, that's my understanding too.
All right.
So if we stay with the denial, you're okay with that?
I understand that if you deny that, I'm still able to go ahead and build the structure within the realms of having that horizontal exterior wall that matches the things in the area, which, yep. That
Okay,
makes
so,
sense.
Mr. Chair, because the original intent was to understand whether it was a front yard, backyard kind of situation, and that was clarified, can he just withdraw his application and get his money back?
This is Schrader with staff. If he wanted to do that, yes. If he wanted to withdraw, we would refund based on that confusion of front yard, rear yard. He may still want you to vote to see if he can get the siding done.
I have a pretty strong sense of knowing where you guys might vote, and I feel great about getting my money back. I didn't know that would be an option since I had already submitted it, and then they got that cleared up. So if it's an opportunity for me to withdraw my variance request for the vertical metal siding, I would like to do that.
So,
Okay.
so withdrawn, and we will. Did you use check? Did you write a check? Okay, we'll have to check if it's not cashed. We can just get it back to you. If it is, we'll have to get it refunded. But no problem.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, and I apologize that it took this much time.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Geez, Eric, you probably would have got your first time we'd voted for you.
It's got to change.
I'm going to assume that you did.
All right. Whoops. Our fifth request by Clyde Huntley Company, sled shed for a variance to the hard surfacing requirements to allow for a gravel driveway located in the M1 Light Industrial District at 1626 Burton Avenue.
This starting off with staff. The applicant is requesting a variance to the hard surfacing requirements to build a 30 by 56, 1,682 square foot commercial structure on the property with gravel driveway. The property is located on Burton Avenue. The property is zoned M1 Light Industrial District, and the site has an existing small business. Properties to the north, south, and east are zoned M1 Light Industrial District. Properties to the west are zoned R2 1 and 2 Family Residence District. The request is not anticipated to have a negative impact on the neighborhood. The applicant only intends to use the commercial structure for dry storage. The commercial structure to the west side of the structure has a gravel driveway that is grandfathered in that does not require hard surfacing, but new buildings being constructed on commercial or industrial lots do require hard surfacing. The zoning ordinance requires driveways of parking lots for commercial or industrial uses to be hard surface. The applicant is asking for a variance to the provision to allow for a gravel driveway connect between the existing commercial building and the western side of the property to a proposed commercial building in the center of the lot. Staff would note that there are several industrial buildings in the immediate vicinity. The applicant is proposing to build a 30 by 56, 1,682 square foot building. The applicant is requesting a variance to the hard surface requirement. Currently only intends to use the proposed building for storage purposes. Staff is not concerned about the approval for the variance to the hard surface requirement due to the fact the existing commercial property on the west side of the property has gravel and is grandfathered in, does not require the hard surfacing. In addition to the proposed structure is only being used for storage next to an existing equipment yard with a gravel surface. Criteria: lack of reasonable return does not appear to be a lack of reasonable return. The applicant could hard surface the access driveway to the proposed structure, although the existing gravel driveway to the west of the equipment storage yard is grandfathered in, so would not have to be hard surface. Uniqueness: the property in question is unique due to the fact the existing gravel driveway around a commercial building on the west side of the lot is grandfathered in and does not require hard surfacing. In addition, the proposed commercial building will not be used for it will only be used for new and unsold equipment and inventory. Public consideration: staff has heard no opposition to the request. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Clyde Huntley for a variance to the hard surface requirements to allow for a gravel vehicular use area in a commercial building in the M1 Light Industrial District located 1621 Burton Avenue be approved for the following reasons. The property in question is unique because the existing gravel driveway around the commercial building is on a lot grandfathered and does not meet the hard surfacing requirement, does not require hard surfacing. The proposed commercial building will only be used for storage purposes and will not be intensive commercial use.
I just have one question out of the, would a conflict of interest be that you've been a customer of this facility? Would that be sufficient to warrant me from abstaining?
This is Schrader with staff. Generally speaking, just being a customer of a business would not be considered a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Unless he's offering a discount.
Oh. Oh, no, he's never offered a discount.
That's what would create the conflict.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fairly priced, but never.
He may not want you to come back, though, depending on.
That's true. Okay, any other questions? Okay. So anybody in the audience wish to speak in favor of the request? If you want to stand up, you can.
If you have any questions, otherwise,
No, that's,
I guess the only thing I would say, and I can go up there if you'd like me to, that little white garage, okay, I'm sorry.
yeah, you need to sign in, just give us your name and your address.
My name is Zach Huntley, and the address is 1626 Burton Avenue. Just to go on record too, that white garage out back there has not been used in a very long time. So that's part of what we're using this for. Just with 3 other shops closing down in the last few years, it's obviously put a big strain on the 3 shops that are remaining. So that'll be a big help to be able to get more product in and actually have it there for the customers. And obviously with the way getting equipment and parts is right now, that'll definitely be a big help.
So to understand, the existing structure stays and you're putting in no.
Oh, that little white garage, more or less, that's going bye-bye.
Okay,
That's,
all right.
that's pretty much where the new building will start. It'll be a few feet ahead of that just to bring it closer to our workshop. But no, that's going to be gone.
Okay.
That probably should have been gone many, many years ago.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Anybody else wish to speak in favor of the request? Does anybody wish to speak against the request? Hearing or seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the request by Clyde Huntley for a variance to the hard surfacing regulations to allow a gravel vehicular use area for a commercial building in the M1 Light Industrial District located at 1626 Burton Avenue be approved for the following reasons. Number one, the property in question is unique because the existing gravel around the commercial building on the lot is grandfathered and does not require hard surfacing. Number two, the proposed commercial building will only be used for storage purposes and will not be an intensive commercial use.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Jerry, you did say aye?
I did, yes,
Okay, I'm sorry. I just didn't hear it. Okay. You're all ready to go.
No.
Request by Patrick Maloney, Valley-wide towing and recovery for a special permit to allow for an impound lot considered part of a recycling, junk, or salvage yard, and variances to the fencing requirements for a non-solid fence of 6 feet, 2 feet less than the required to allow for a lot that is 1.53 acres, 3.47 acres less than the 5 acres required, and allow for the yard to be within 600 feet of a protected use in the M1 Light Industrial District located northeast of 2721 Lackland Drive. Staff report.
This is Darnell with staff. I'm sure you're getting tired of hearing my voice, but this will be the last one. The applicant is requesting a special permit for an impound yard, which is included as a recycling, junk, or salvage yard. The request would not appear to have a negative impact surrounding the area, as the site is adjacent to other industrial uses, including a bus yard to the north that kind of be classified as a junkyard. It's there's some, if you can see in the pictures. So the request not appear to have a negative impact on pedestrian or traffic conditions in the area. The site has been zoned M1 Light Industrial District since the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. Surrounding uses and their zoning included to the north industrial uses and residence zoned M1 Light Industrial District. To the south, industrial uses zoned M1 Light Industrial District. To the east is industrial uses in the Iowa Northern Railroad zone M1 Light Industrial District. And to the western, industrial uses zoned M1 Light Industrial District. The industry was built between 1951 and 2000, residences between 1920 and 1950. Recycling, junk, and salvage yard ordinance requires all yards, including impound yards, to be surrounded by 8-foot solid fence in uniform height and color. The applicant is requesting a variance to the fencing requirement or to install a 6-foot chain link fence that matches the neighboring properties and is agreeing to the condition of approval that the site be limited to an impound lot, not a typical salvage yard. The applicant is requesting a special permit to allow for an impound lot to be located on a vacant lot on Lackland Drive, which is northeast of 2721 Lackland Drive. An impound lot is a temporary lot where cars are brought in after accidents or parking violations and are stored at the facility until the cars are either sent to a repair center or declared a total loss by insurance company and sent to a proper salvage yard or claimed by the owner. However, due to the history of some impound lots being used as junk and salvage yards in the past, The use was put under the same section of the ordinance as recycling, junk, and salvage yards to ensure the lot does not become a junk or salvage yard, and because the proposed yard would need various variances to operate, staff has added multiple conditions to the request. The applicant submitted site plan includes a new building, paved parking area, and fence around the lot. However, the applicant is requesting allowed to have fencing that matches the neighbors, which is a chain link fence that does not meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance, which would need to be a 8-foot solid fence and would need a variance. The request will need a variance to the requirement that a new yard be a minimum of 5 acres. A variance because the proposed yard is within 600 feet of protected use residential, and a variance to the fence requirements that requires this 8-foot solid opaque material. The proposed location in the pound lot is on Lackland Drive, just east of Texas Street, and surrounded by industrial uses, including a commercial tire store located at the corner of Lackland Drive and Texas Street, and a bus sales facility on Texas Street, which includes storage of dilapidated buses and trailers. Staff has added several conditions to the request to ensure the neighborhood that the property will not become a junk and salvage yard, which the applicant was informed of and approved. These include that the cars may not be stored at the lot for longer than 90 days, dismantling cars will not be permitted, and the salvage yard license or permit for the property would not be accepted or approved unless it meets all the requirements to go through another special permit process and is approved by a full recycling, junk, and salvage yard. The property is also less than 600 feet from protected use, with 2 homes located on Texas Street and 1 home located on Cedars Terrace Drive. However, staff received no calls from the neighbors, and who were all mailed notices, and they received there was no opposition to Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission meeting. The Planning, Programming, and Zoning Commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of the request at their December 28th meeting, 2021 meeting. And therefore, Craig will have to abstain from this one also. Lack of reasonable return. There will not appear to be a lack of reasonable return. Uniqueness. There would appear to be uniqueness to the request. The applicant is not requesting an actual salvage yard, but instead just an impound yard where cars were brought in after an accident or impounded and are moved off once the cars are claimed or insurance companies determine the fate of the car. Public considerations. Approval of the special permit and variances will not appear to have a negative impact on the area. The property is surrounded by other industrial uses, and while there's a few residences within 600 feet, staff has received no opposition calls in the request, and there was no opposition at the P&Z meeting.
Okay.
And
He's not done.
yeah. Therefore, staff recommends that the request by Procter & Maloney for a special permit to allow for an impound lot considered part of a recycling, junk, or salvage yard in the M1 Light Industrial District located northeast of 2721 Lackland Drive be approved for the following reasons. The impound lot is located in an industrial area. The operation is much less intensive than an actual salvage yard. The area has been zoned M1 since the adoption of zoning ordinance in 1969 with the following conditions: that the final site plan meet all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including not limited to the parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, setbacks, except as approved by the Board of Adjustment. No cars may be stored at the facility for longer than 90 days. Dismantling of cars is prohibited. And number 4, a salvage license or permit application would not be accepted or approved for the property unless it meets all the requirements of the salvage yard section of the zoning ordinance and goes through another special permit process and is approved as a full recycling, junk, or salvage yard.
Any questions?
Not for staff.
Yes. You skipped over on page 55 that a drainage plan will be required. At what point in the process will that be submitted, and would it need to be a part of this motion?
No, it won't. That would be part of engineering when he requests a building permit.
Okay. And then the second thing is, the original request dealt with a variance to fencing less than 5 acres, and yet that wasn't part of the conditions. Is there a reason for that?
good point.
As far as,
Well, it seems like we're going to have to add those conditions.
yeah, you
there
have to add the
because-
variances to the request.
Right, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Is that it, Jerry?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, is there anybody in the audience who would speak in favor of the request?
My name's Patrick Maloney, 1150 Columbus in Waterloo here.
Yeah.
I just come in front of you guys to see if you have any questions or comments or anything that I can answer. Obviously, I'm in favor of it. I'm the applicant. So,
Just a few. How long have you been in business, Mr. Maloney?
since 1st of April, roughly,
And
March 22nd to be exact.
And what exactly, what type of business do you do?
Towing and recovery.
So if I get in,
Tow trucks
if I get in a crash and I needed a tow, you're coming to take my car.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if there's a vehicle that needs to be impounded for some reason, you're the one to call.
Right.
Are you on the rotation list at the Blackhawk County Comm Center?
I am not yet. I've been trying to, this has kind of been I think I applied around Thanksgiving for this, and I've been waiting on a fence company, which sounds like that's going to get pushed. I've got them scheduled. If this gets approved, ultimately, it sounds like March 1st is when they plan to do this, barring how deep the frost line is. So I'm not on the rotation yet. Got to get a secured lot built, and that's what this is for.
Okay. And there's, part of this is, excuse me, that these vehicles cannot be in that area for longer than 90 days. What is your experience with insurance companies? If I crash my car and you tow it to your lot, how quickly is that matter resolved with the towing or the insurance company?
Most insurance companies are pretty fast on getting, settlements and adjusters out there. If you have a vehicle that needs to, get moved on to an auto body place, or if it's total or something, most insurance companies are pretty, within 7 to 10 days, because ultimately they're paying storage costs, and then they get a backlog of cars, so they stay pretty up on that. And then in the state of Iowa, you can claim abandoned cars after, you can rightfully claim them after 10 days of being in your possession. And so in my dealings of being in the business, it's about every 30-day process you can send abandoned vehicle paperwork to be able to clear out those round of cars, if people abandon their vehicles. About every 30 days, a process of getting abandoned vehicles sent to usually a scrapper.
So where are you conducting business right now?
I am conducting business out of 1150 Columbus. Got a truck there in front of my house.
Okay, but where do you take the vehicles that you're called for?
I don't hardly do any impounding of vehicles right now. I'm not on the rotation, or I don't do any impounding of vehicles right now.
So what are you doing?
Just, general motor clubs and people who call for tows and, stuff that gets taken to repair shops, stuff like that.
Okay. How many vehicles do you anticipate being able to put on this property?
I don't know. We could fill the back with the north fence line is 183 feet long. I mean, that's where I'm going to start. That's the farthest from the street there. That's what abuts back there on school bus sales, and that's the farthest from the street. And so that's where I plan to house any vehicles, that come in. Start there. So it's not going to be pile. There won't be any stacking of cars or stacking of metals, of course, as in the, as in described in the staff report. There won't be any of that.
So you're bringing them in, moving them on to an auto repair business or a salvage yard,
Right.
or in the case of abandoned vehicles, like you said, after 30 days, what happens with those?
After you send abandoned vehicle paperwork, and then it's mail that's send mail, and after a certain period, the state of Iowa will grant you a new title in which you can auction off that vehicle. And so an auction order send it to a scrapping facility. That's about every 30-day process. Every 30 days you start over.
So if you are entitled to possession of that vehicle after all of that, then what are you doing with it? Where is it going?
Oh, it's getting auctioned off or sent to a scrapping facility.
Where is it auctioned off at?
At the lot there.
At your lot?
Yeah.
So you're going to have an auction every 60 days?
Every 60.
Because you can only keep it there for 90 days.
Right. That's what the law states. You're supposed to auction off the vehicle. A lot of people forego that and just send abandoned vehicles that aren't worth anything to a scrapping business.
I guess where I'm going with this, it's going to be very incumbent on you to make sure that you're fulfilling this 90-day requirement.
Right.
That's part of the stipulation, so that this doesn't become an eyesore and we have a lot of problems with it. Right. And you're up to that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
So you're building a building out there?
Plans for one this spring or first this summer.
Okay, but you would continue to work out of your home and just use this as a storage facility, right?
Yep, until a building can get built.
Okay, but you would have to have the hard surface done. You understand that?
Yep.
Okay.
And tagging on with that, the hard surface is for the entire, when you say hard surface, what are you referencing?
Whatever's required by the ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, which a salvage yard is only required for the parking area for customers in the front. It's not required for where they store the cars.
So it can be a grass field.
Right.
Okay. Is that your intent, to leave it grass?
No,
or?
intent's to put a considerable amount of gravel down there, because it would probably become a mud pit. It's a lot that's never had anything built on or anything, so it's all virgin ground. There's 6 feet of black dirt down there. It'd become extremely hard to drive tow trucks around on that ground without a hard 3-inch gravel or something like that.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody wish to be against the request? Hearing or seeing none? There's no further questions or comments. I'd entertain a motion. Jerry?
Okay, how can I always get these? All righty. I move that we approve the request by Patrick Maloney for a special permit to allow for an impound lot considered part of a recycling, junk, or salvage yard in the M1 Light Industrial District located northeast of 2721 Lackland Drive be approved for the following reasons. 1, the impound lot is located in an industrial area. 2, the operation is much less intense than an actual salvage yard. 3, the area has been zoned M1 since the adoption of the zoning ordinance in 1969. With the following conditions. 1, that the final site plan meets all applicable city codes, regulations, etc., including but not limited to parking, landscaping, screening, drainage, setbacks, etc., except as approved by the Board of Adjustment. 2, that no cars may be stored at this facility for longer than 90 days. 3, dismantling of cars will be prohibited. 4, I want to correct it. What about trucks? It could be cars and trucks, any vehicle. 4, a salvage yard license or permit application will not be accepted or approved for the property unless it meets all of the requirements of the salvage yard section of the zoning ordinance and go through another special permit process and be approved as a full recycling, junk, or salvage yard. Further, the variances to the fencing requirement for a non-solid chain link fence of 6 feet, which is 2 feet less than required, be allowed, and to allow for a lot that is 1.53 acres instead of 5 acres, which is 3.47 acres less than required. And finally, allow for a yard to be within 600 feet of a protected use in the M1 Light Industrial District located, period. 5 acres fencing protect, yes.
I'll second that motion. John, you look like you wanted to say something. You're thinking.
I'm just waiting for you to call a vote.
Oh, okay. Looked awful intent for that. Just a quick comment, it probably would be very hard for anybody to monitor that 90-day. So, but I would think that would be in any facility. Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it has been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney, for your patience, not only today, but since you put in this application, 1st December? Yep. But you're all set?
Thank you. Is there any further discussion items?
Just real quick, I'd like to introduce our newest planner, Lexi Blank, who started yesterday, so you'll probably be seeing a lot more of her.
No.
Welcome.
Welcome. They didn't give you these 6 to do, huh? Right off the bat?
I told Eric, I couldn't torture her that way. I'm not that bad.
Well, we're all pretty easy to get along with, except for John Beckman. You know, other than that, we're pretty good. Okay, with that, was there a comment?
I'll second that.
With that, I will move. No, I can't move. I will ask for a
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. See you next month.